So the December 17th special meeting of the North Olmsted Planning and Design Commission will come to order at 7 p.m. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Wilson, will you call the roll?
Mr. David,
Present.
Mr. Leon,
Here.
Mr. Minio, Mr. De Alessandro,
Here.
Ms. Kalen, Ms. Hamden.
Here.
Disagree.
Thank you all for coming tonight to this special meeting a week before Christmas. Thank you. There is one case on the agenda to be heard this evening. We will begin with staff presentations on the agenda. Once the staff have completed their presentations, public comment will commence. The agenda item to be considered this evening is the referral from City Council of Ordinance number 2025-100, an ordinance providing for the amendment of the zone map of the City of North Olmsted by rezoning permanent parcel number 236-10-015 from a one-family residence district to a planned unit development. Code Section 1157. Director Upton, if you would.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. I want to extend my gratitude for you being here for a special meeting, as the chairman said, the week before Christmas. I really do appreciate your service to the community. I want to begin my report by saying that, you all have heard me through the years for some of you, mercifully months for other of you, that I talk about density, and I generally almost always advocate for density. Density encourages more efficient land use. It lowers the city's carbon footprint. It lessens the burden on our public infrastructure. When you look at the land in terms of the amount of tax revenue per acre, it yields a much larger return to the city than what we would refer to, some of you through academia and being here have heard me refer to Euclidean zoning and Euclidean zoning development patterns. It's just much more efficient and much more productive. The application before us is a site plan with high density that also seeks to preserve the historic Biddulph house. It seeks to address some of the key provisions within the master plan by adding new housing options and preserving historic structures. It presents the potential for additional infrastructure dollars to be invested within the historic district. But there are, as many things there are two sides to the argument. This proposal is arguably consistent with the master plan, but clearly the rezoning of single family for high density is at odds with the expectation of neighboring property owners who have presented their side of the equation. And they doubt its consistency with the master plan. And I think those are both equally valid points of view. By charter, rezoning, and you'll forgive me, I forgot to apologize for the length of my report. It is not going to be short this evening. So by charter, a rezoning referral from City Council has to be acted on by this commission within 30 days unless an extension was granted. In this case, there was a 30-day extension, which resulted in a 60-day review. The Planning and Design Commission needs to make a recommendation to City Council by December 20th, or this application is presumed to have a favorable recommendation. In other words, you guys are okay with what's being presented. The applicant's request through their legal counsel, it was requested, it was not granted by City Council last night, hence we're here this evening. And you may recall that Mr. O'Malley, my esteemed colleague, has described the PD zoning or form-based zoning is allowing you guys the benefit of seeing what's proposed prior to granting the rezoning. In this instance, the applicant has gone back to the drawing board several times to reduce the density and would like to do so again. The rezoning plan as presented shows too much density for this district because of the nature of the PD and the mechanics of the zone process, meaning that to rezone to planned development, they are required to present you what it's going to look like. You giving a favorable recommendation based upon a plan you haven't seen is not something that myself and the staff would recommend. Therefore, it is the recommendation of staff that Ordinance 2025-100 not be given a favorable recommendation to City Council. We recommend that you tell City Council that this ordinance should not be passed. Mr. Chairman, if I may address the members of the community. Please. Thank you. To the members of the community, I want to thank you guys for your advocacy and feedback. I met a lot of people that I now consider friends. And ironically, I met a family member I didn't know I had, Mr. Sharp, who's, I think, by my calculation, a third cousin by marriage. I did not know that until this whole thing started. My oldest cousin is married to his cousin's son. How about that? And so I've learned a lot from you all about kind of the pain and the loss of the historic district, from urban renewal with I-480 coming through and kind of taking out some of the district, to some of the homes being moved from one end of the city to another, and to what your councilwoman would call some overregulation in the historic district that kind of gets in the way of you wanting to hang a certain type of window or do a dormer a certain way. It's got in the way of you doing what you want to do to your home. So I've heard you. We've heard you. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your passion for the historic district with you. This is part of the sausage making of the process, right? And the mission of our department is to facilitate the process for those that wish to come and develop. And what's most important to that mission is doing so in an open, public format that allows you all to see what we see and to provide a feedback to staff, to the boards and commissions, and ultimately to our decision makers on City Council. Our reports are not endorsements of a proposal or advocacy of a proposal. We ensure that they've met the requirements of the code to be in front of this body, to be heard. And we try to ferret out all the details for the Planning Commission and for City Council so that they're able to make the best decision possible given all the information. And so I want to thank you all for coming and being engaged. I can assure you that we've heard you, and through that process, that's where we've arrived at the conclusion that this not be given a favorable recommendation. So, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for the long report, and thank you for allowing me.
Thank you very much. Assistant Director of Law, Mr. O'Malley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, you can put me on the clock so that I don't go too long.
Ding.
Okay. If it's fair for the residents, it's fair for me as well. First, I want to tell you that it's not my role to advocate for or against an application. And if I've said anything in a previous meetings to suggest that I'm for or against something, I want to erase that. My role is to advise you on your role as members of the Planning and Design Commission, to counsel you on issues of constitutional law, and on the charter, on what's before you, give you guidance on how you do your job. Advocacy from the city comes from the city staff, or it may come from the city could theoretically have independent counsel that's advocating the city's position. So, first and foremost, you're an independent body. You make your decisions based upon the substantial, the probative, and the evidence that's presented before you. You don't make your decisions based upon emotion or based upon a perception or anything that's off the record, so to speak. You make your decisions on the record, on the merits. Why? Because the applicant has a property interest and they have a right to due process of law. The first, one of the most important virtues of due process is an independent and fair hearing, and you provide that. And you, by the way, have provided that. You've provided several hearings on to review this matter. A lot of what you do is administrative review. I often call that your bread and butter. You have a site plan, administrative review. You have guidelines. You have checklists. You have box scores. You have standards in the code. This is not administrative review. Contrasted with administrative review is legislative review. Legislative review is very much broader. It's a bigger picture review that you perform. So set aside some of those site plan reviews that you're accustomed to doing and step back and think of the big picture zoning analysis. How am I doing on my 5 minutes?
I may give you a little leeway here.
I have quoted the charter to you in the past, and it's worth quoting it again. It's Article 7, Section 2, subsection B. The duties and powers of the Planning and Design Commission shall have the power and duty to hear applications for land use, zoning classifications or districts, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You've heard and you understand that when a rezoning application is introduced to council, it's referred to you for your recommendation, and you're subject to a time requirement. So here we are. This isn't your first or your only opportunity to review this rezoning, nor is it your only opportunity to have reviewed that preliminary development plan. The issue of the master plan is it's also referenced in that section of the charter. In a nutshell, the charter directs you to follow the recommendations of the master plan. It even uses the word shall. So if you find that this rezoning is dictated by the master plan, then you should recommend in favor of it because it says shall. Now, let me tell you a little history on the zoning or the charter provision. The charter used to have a language in it that mandated that the master plan specifically dictate zoning classification for every single parcel in the city. And historically, the master plan would go through and indicate what the zoning was expected to be for every single parcel. And if the master plan said, oh, that single family is going to become cluster someday, if somebody came in with cluster, then it said you shall recommend in favor of it. Now, you're a recommending body. The legislative authority that is being wielded here is held by the city council. So the charter was amended. That mandatory language is still there, but what's not there anymore is that the master plan specifically dictates a district designation for each and every parcel. Because planners have a comprehensive plan that is more aspirational and tries to give a broad guidance and not there's nothing in the master plan that specifically says that this parcel of property is required to be planned development or cluster. Now, on the subject of zoning, you have the director mentioned Euclidean zoning. Now, that's not Euclidean as in the mathematician from history. It's Euclidean from the city of Euclid. And it's around about 100 years ago, the United States Supreme Court took up a zoning case that arose out of the city of Euclid. And it was an industrial property that the city wanted to rezone to single family because the industrial and commercial development was heading east at the time, and the city of Euclid wanted to rezone the property from industrial uses to single family uses. The Supreme Court took it up, and it was a momentous landmark case because the Supreme Court doesn't take up much zoning legislation. But it held that property owners, they don't have an absolute right to do whatever they would want to do on their property, and that cities can and do regulate the use of the property, and that use of property is subject to police power regulations that substantially advance the health, safety, and general welfare of the community. Well, what does that mean? Well, the courts are pretty much hands off on these legislative determinations. In Ohio, the zoning is presumed to be constitutional unless it's demonstrated to be unconstitutional beyond fair debate, which is a standard of law that is really close to, you've heard the standard, beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, this standard is right up there. So you start out with the presumption that single-family zoning is valid. Now, so that's the due process analysis. You've also probably heard the word taking. So a property owner has an interest in his property not being taken by the government without just compensation. So takings come in the way of a literal, physical taking of the property, which is not here, or a regulatory taking of the property that the regulations are so extreme that they deprive the property owner of all economically viable uses of their property. That claim has not been made. I don't know if that claim is about to be made, but it hasn't been made. So we're not dealing with a situation where our single-family zoning is at risk because of some theory of confiscatory application of our regulations. The property is and has been used for single-family for decades, if not more than a century. Now, as the director pointed out, the single-family home on the property is in dire straits. And part of the proposal is to, as the signs say, save this historic district. Well, it's about saving this historic home, and that's been part of the proposal. Nonetheless, that aside, your zoning review is the pros and the cons of what is proposed. It's a broad review. It's a bird's eye review, and you've already undertaken quite a bit of it, and you're not so much. Now, a short comment about this planned design district. What I've described as what you see is what you get. Most zoning is done in the blind. You create a district, you cross your fingers, and you hope the development comes in. This planned unit development is designed to describe what's being built, and the rezoning and the planned development goes through together. So what you see is what you get. So that's why there's been a bifurcation of some of the review. The preliminary plan led the way. There was matters before the Landmarks Commission, and then the zoning analysis. So it's a very, very thorough, if not exhausting, review, and you're probably exhausted by my 10-minute speech. So I'll end it there.
Only
And
7.5, so. far.
I'll welcome any comments or questions that you may have.
Thank you. So, it's my understanding that the city staff's recommendation is to not approve this tonight.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And, Mr. O'Malley, it's largely because the plan that was submitted as a preliminary plan is no longer actually on the table, it's being modified.
No, I wouldn't say it that way. The applicant may or may not modify their plan. It's unknown.
Okay. So basically, the city's recommending, or city staff is recommending that we vote no on it tonight.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. Well, I think we could make this a fairly quick meeting, but if anybody really wants to come up and have their 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, the applicant should be heard.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I know you're probably looking for the,
That is correct.
but this is new counsel for the applicant, but the applicant evidently couldn't appear tonight?
That's correct. My name is John Slater. I'm legal counsel for the applicant. My address is 950 Main Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio. I'm with the Tucker Ellis Law Firm, and I appreciate your time and consideration this evening. We did request, and we appreciate the fact that the Planning Commission at least gave us an opportunity, was willing to have this matter heard in January, which would have given my client and the applicant the ability to try to address some of the issues that may have been raised. And as indicated by your planning director, we have along the way worked with the city to try to come up with an acceptable plan. And I'm a little bit surprised today of the position taken by the planning director. Obviously, they have the ability to do that, but I do have the minutes from the previous meetings, and that previous plan was recommended by the planning department as to be approved. And so I'm a little surprised by the change in position. But I do know when I was driving here, I was actually routed down Butternut, and I saw the signs that said no to 45 homes and no to the historic district. So I understand there's significant pressure on the city. And I appreciate the presentation of the legal issues, as Attorney O'Malley had indicated to you. It's with that in mind that I want to request that this body do recommend the change in the zoning. And I think the change in the zoning is appropriate for a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, as indicated in and cited by legal counsel for the city, and as really previously discussed by the planning director and otherwise, we clearly believe that that this proposed plan and the rezoning is truly consistent with your comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan was just recently revised. It talks specifically about the need for alternate housing types in this community. The townhomes that we're proposing provide exactly that. This body actually approved of that proposal on your October 8th meeting. And I know there's objections concerning traffic. That's nothing new. That's an issue that the courts deal with all the time. And the courts indicate that traffic is really secondary issue. It shouldn't be a driving factor in denying a zoning decision because we have traffic experts and traffic engineers. And anytime you have any development, you're going to have some level of traffic. we've provided a traffic impact study, and that these homes indicate are not going to create a substantial burden as it relates to traffic. And even to the extent there is, when you go to final development approval, if a further traffic study is done, there are ways to address that. Signalization, there's road widening, there's other issues that can be done. Traffic, stormwater, a multitude of those issues have been raised, are not what's relevant for this body at this time. Those are issues that, and you have rules and regulations that we are going to have to comply with, and in fact any developer would have to comply with. And so as we focus and hone in on this specific issue, there is a mandate specifically within your charter, and that is a little unusual to have a specific mandate like this where you shall follow the comprehensive plan or your master plan. And I think what's important is your master plan, as indicated before, and if you go back, I know I don't want to go over the previous statements that have been made, but I just want to point out some, is clearly the land use goal is to provide a balanced mix of new development additionally, there's a goal of infill development, optimize what we currently have, encourage infill on vacant or underutilized parcels to maximize existing infrastructure. Housing, key factors, build out in the city. You've got significant build out in the city, but the housing goals that are set forth there are to attract new residences and support existing residents as needs change by expanding housing variety and offering diverse housing types. That's exactly what we're doing. Partner for diverse product supply, proactively seek developers who deliver a range of types of price points, starting homes, cluster homes, townhomes. That's exactly what this development is. Remove barriers, affordability or otherwise. The cost to build a single family home has doubled and tripled just in the last few years. That's why you need this type of housing. There is an affordability in a housing crisis, not just in this community, but throughout Northeast Ohio, throughout the United States. It's a significant issue. The cost to develop is just substantially more. Your comprehensive plan, which was just updated, specifically recognizes that. A goal of looking at aging in place and right sizing, and many individuals don't want to have their own single family properties, take care of them, or otherwise they want to move to townhomes or otherwise. That's why many of this type of product typically attracts either empty nesters, young individuals that are, you have older individuals, obviously their children have grown up, they don't want to take care of their property anymore, they want it maintained or otherwise, and then also young professionals who've moved to the area, don't have children yet or otherwise, and then once they do, they typically seek a different type of housing product, single family home, and there's recognized in your comprehensive plan is there's a need for this type of product, and there's a clear understanding that there's very few areas to develop. In fact, this property is one of the few properties in this community that really would be eligible for this type of development. And what's even more important is your PUD zoning was modified just in the last year. And so you can't just, as your legal counsel indicated, yes, zoning from a legislative perspective relates to the use of your government's police power, but that exercise of that power needs to be tied to a legitimate governmental interest, typically health, safety, or welfare. But that activity can't be done in an arbitrary manner. This body, the government, has already made a decision that we would like to see plan unit development. We know in our communities there's a handful of properties where this can apply. This is one of them. And if you look at the standards and then jump to plan unit development, this fits squarely in it. It doesn't fall outside of it. And just because a portion of it is within the historic district doesn't mean this property can't be developed. Just like stormwater, just like traffic, where we're going to have to go and get engineering approval or otherwise, my client's in the process of getting landmark review, which is another protection built in. So just because it's in a historic area, some of the property doesn't mean it can't be developed. And just because it's zoned single family doesn't mean it can't be developed. And there are issues as it relates to, I know that theoretically there was a discussion about the law, Euclidean zoning, and as long as there is a legitimate governmental interest, then zoning is appropriate. There's also a discussion about takings, and this all relates to the Fifth Amendment, substantive due process. But, okay, what does that all mean? There's a case known as Shimo in Mayfield Heights. That's where the Costco is located. That property was zoned residential. And the developer, the owner of the property, challenged the zoning, and ultimately the Supreme Court determined that the zoning was unconstitutional because it did not further the legitimate governmental interest. It was not the zoning as applied to it created a substantial burden on that property. And what did they look at to determine the appropriateness of the zoning? One, it was located right next to 271 and significant traffic. Where is this property located? Right next to 480. And even as indicated by your legal counsel, the residents don't like the fact that 480 impacted their historic district. Well, unfortunately, that happened to them, and the government also has a right of eminent domain to build roads or otherwise, and unfortunately impact residences or otherwise, but that impact on property, the location of 480 right here, creates a burden on the property. Additionally, you have to look at surrounding uses. One portion of the property has these single-family homes, a historic district, but let's look at the other area of the property. One, you got 480. The other part, you have an apartment complex with units at 16 units an acre, or 14 units an acre, well above what my client is proposing. Also, right across the street, in the golf course area, you have another development that's well over 10 units an acre, more than my client's proposing. And so you need to treat similarly situated property similarly. That's equal protection rights. So there are a multitude of issues that are here. And if the zoning creates a burden, as your legal counsel indicated, not just depriving the property of all use, but if there is substantial burden created, there's a case known as Penn Central, it doesn't have to mean the property has no economically beneficial use. If there's a significant impact because of the circumstances, adjacency to high-density apartment, the fact that you have your 480 there, and just the cost of construction. We have agreed to respect the historic district by restoring the property. That comes at a significant cost. And so the cost to do that is built into the overall development plan. And so again, we don't come here to, it's unfortunate that it's come to this point where there's, individuals that don't want it. But the fact of the matter, I've been doing this for over 34 years, is this is not unusual. Most people don't want to see a piece of vacant land behind them built. Or if they do, it's going to be a constant argument. I doubt if we cut the density down by 10 or 15% or 20% that people would say, this is great, let's move forward. Because the fact of the matter is, it happens all the time. They don't want development. And it's the same issues you always hear: traffic, stormwater, it's going to impact the value of my property, all those issues. And again, it doesn't mean that there's not concerns there, and I'm respectful of that, but we also have to go back, look at the law, look at what you've already done. You've created a brand new plan that says you need this type of housing, and you adopted a zoning to allow these PUD type of use. Specifically, this is one of the few properties it would apply to, and we're doing exactly that. And we're respecting the historic district by restoring that property. We've moved our development back. Again, I wish we would have had more time maybe to make some more modifications, but council forced this upon us. You've already approved that previous plan. I believe, again, council's going to make the ultimate decision. If they want to deny it, then my client has legal rights to pursue if they need to. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point. But the fact of the matter is my client spent significant time, money, has respected the code, and is moving forward. And we respectfully request that you follow the mandate in your charter, follow the plan, and as represented at prior meetings, this plan is consistent with your comprehensive plan. And we believe it would be appropriate, in fact, mandatory for this body to do that because the plan is consistent with your comprehensive plan. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Now it's time for public comment. If you would come up to the podium, give us your name, spell it and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, Mary Ellen Heeman, 132 Greenwood Way South, North Olmsted, Ohio. I'm the current Ward 4 councilwoman. And so thank you so much for your presentation. I think that had your client respected my statements to him over a year ago that we did not want this project, you know, we might not all find ourselves here today. But that did not happen. I get calls all the time about this. There are a myriad of issues, the historic district being only one of them. There are storm sewers needed. There's so many things to a development on this property. None of those things are really usually ever underwritten simply by a developer, as you probably know. And that would require further granting of privileges, transactions, you know, with city council. So this is only one small piece. And, you know, it has been brought up many times over 20 years or so, and no one has ever wanted this. Most of the developers have respected that, and they don't press us and pursue us and threaten to sue us. So I am respectfully asking that you not recommend this to council. I think if you've paid attention to council, you probably already know that. Thank you.
My name's Robert Perry, P-A-R-R-Y, live at 27150 Butternut Ridge Road. The proposed PUD zoning of the historic property in the middle of the North Olmsted Butternut Historic District to allow multifamily development on the subject parcel is an affront to the homeowners who live on Butternut and a betrayal to the very core of the historic district. Butternut Ridge, one of the first streets in the city, has been developed over the last 200 years as a single-family area, evidenced by the lack of any apartments, multifamily, or commercial uses. It was and is a street of stately homes, farmhouses, and historic structures, many on large parcels. This results in a spaciousness not found elsewhere in North Olmsted. The current zoning for most of the street is single-family A zone, the largest minimum lot size in the city. The entire area on both sides of Butternut, from Columbia Road to Revere Road, including the subject parcel, is zoned for single-family homes, Zone A. The westerly end of the district, west of Revere Road to Lorraine Road, is all single-family zoning and is in the second district, single-family B zoning, which has slightly smaller lot sizes. In the Zone A district of single-family, the development is regulated to single-family lots with a minimum of 80 feet in width and a minimum lot size of 13,200 square feet. The subject parcel contains a house built in 1863, and the parcel is listed as 5.5 acres in size, or just under 240,000 square feet. Under the current single-family zoning district, this parcel could be used as it is today as a large single-family property, or it could be subdivided today without a rezoning in the single-family district. It could be subdivided into 5 one-acre lots. You could keep the Century home on the frontage and put in a small cul-de-sac with 4 one-acre lots. It could also be developed into about 14 single-family homes under the current single-family zoning, and single-family lots with a maximum density permitted by code of about 3.3 dwellings per acre. The proposed development, however, is of multifamily townhomes of 65 dwellings on 5.5 acres, resulting in about 12 dwellings per acre. That would be 4 times the density that is permitted under the current zoning district. According to the county records, the property was purchased in February of 2022 for $200,000. With 14 single-family lots permitted within the existing district, the land cost of a 1/3 acre lot would be approximately $15,000, which makes this parcel very usable under its current zoning of single-family Class A without any further zoning change. Therefore, I recommend that the Planning Commission recommend against rezoning and keeping the current zoning for single-family homes, not permit PUD zoning change that could allow a substantial change in the use of the property, a substantial increase in the density allowed on the property, a substantial intrusion and conflict to the historic district, and intrusion to the adjacent property owners. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Sapienza, 25760 Butternut Ridge Road. First of all, with all due respect to the Summers Group, they don't even live in our city. Neither does Consul. The Consul comes up here and kind of wants to bully you around, threatening lawsuits, anything to push this through. Summers Group will be home counting their money long after the citizens and residents of North Olmsted have to deal with cluster homes in their historic district. The Historical Society was founded in North Olmsted in 1953. Over 70 years, they've been doing their job to preserve our historical society. And to change this, to rezone this, would be an absolute slap in their face. We have something very special. Butternut Ridge Road is the heart of North Olmsted. There's no other city around us, not Fairview Park, not North Ridgeville, not Westlake, that has this historical street. We have nice, old, charming houses. It's unique to the city. It's unique to other cities. And to come along and put in cluster homes, it doesn't belong. It does not fit. It's a fish out of water. There's nothing that's good about it. Consul's trying to sell you a bill of goods that is not very good, with all due respect, sir. This is not the way to go about changing our city. Our city does need development. I agree with that, but not in our historical district. We do not tear down the historical district piece by piece, brick by brick. For what? Cluster homes, condos, what's next? I heard mention we'll deal with the traffic. We'll just widen the road. We'll just put up traffic lights. We don't want our street widened. We don't want traffic lights. We want our historical district historical, just like it says on the sign. You cannot drive down Butternut Ridge Road or any of the other surrounding streets, even as far as Stearns and Decker and the Mastic. Signs are everywhere. Save our historical district. The people of North Olmsted, the residents have spoken. They want to protect what we have. We don't want to see it tore down. We don't need cluster homes on Butternut Ridge Road. We don't need all of this. Is what we need, if anything, is a tax break or some kind of grants to restore and to keep our historical homes preserved. We do not need modern looking homes in a historic district with houses going back to 1835 or maybe even further than that. I'm not sure. But we need to protect our historical society, our district. This ridiculous notion of rezoning is that ridiculous. So I'd like to thank all of you and just consider what we would we would not have if we change our historical district. It's gone for good. We're like any other city. The reason people would want to move to North Olmsted is because we have things like a historical district, not because we got cluster homes. You can find cluster homes any city. We want to preserve what we have. And we need to do that. We need to stand together to keep our historical district just that, historic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Robert Sharp, SHRP 25407 Butternut Ridge. One thing I heard tonight needs a little correction. This is not just a case of not in my backyard. These signs are all over the city. These are the people that live here that value this street. I'm sure everybody here is not in my backyard, but this is not a regular backyard. This is a historical district. We analyzed the city's master plan. I believe I gave out the report to everybody. I have it here. We read this master plan, including this future land use part and everything else. I guess you could cherry pick something out of here and try to make it apply to this development, but that would be a mistake. Most of this master plan shows that this is inappropriate for Butternut Ridge. There's a lot in here. The public wanted to promote historic preservation, one part of it. The 10th point indicates there should be encouragement to preserve and renovate historic homes. Now, renovating the Bidoff house is nice, and that's a wonderful thing, but it's not offset by these other, it's not overridden by these other homes that want to be built within this historic district. If that's the price we have to pay, I think we'd pass on that price. Residential development should occur in appropriate defined areas, not in the middle of a historic district. That's right from the master plan. Should occur in appropriate defined areas. North Olmsted should preserve historic residences while preserving specific neighborhood character, section 5.3B, right from the master plan. Much of the statements within the housing chapter deal with preserving Butternut Ridge. That's following the master plan. Report states many communities allow higher density housing and mixed-use projects along major commercial corridors, not in the middle of a historic district. Recommended strategies and goals. Goals should be to strengthen neighborhood identity and a sense of community within existing and future neighborhoods. Butternut is a large part of the identity of this city. It points to open areas at the west end of the city. Section 3.1C states work to assemble vacant parcels in the western limits of the city. Yes, there is talk about development, but not on Butternut Ridge. It's restricted to the western ends. The other document used, or document that's been mentioned, is the Butternut Historic District Guidelines. I have an analysis of those, and again, that strongly supports our cause that this not be built there. I read most of it in council last night, but I ran out of time. So I have copies of that also, and I won't go through it all tonight, but we have more than enough documentation, the city's own documentation, that this is not appropriate. It's not consistent with these plans. It's not appropriate according to these plans. All the evidence is to our benefit here, that this should not be done. Not against development. There's plenty of areas in the city development. How we ended up here, I have no idea. It's just a little confusing to me. One thing about the city, I had no idea, and this is the emotional part. There's specific evidence in those reports. I had no idea the support we were going to get from the whole rest of the city. I go in businesses and I talk to people, and we're the people that live and vote and invest our money here. I talk to people in many businesses. I have not found one person that indicated that they would like to see this. This is a good idea. That part of the emotional argument has to mean something. Now, we can just be threatened with lawsuits. We've been through this before on this street. I've been on this street for 47 years. But I think we need to continue to look at the master plan and the historic district guidelines and just follow them. And the development should not be permitted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? You did. So I'd like to, at this time, open up to the commissioners if you have any questions of the staff or the applicant.
For Mr. Upton. At the moment, the city's or the development director, your recommendation to not approve it, with the thinking ahead that it will come back later, redesign. Is that what the expectation is?
I don't want to speculate on the future. What my recommendation is based upon the procedure by which PDs are done, and the fact that you would be granting something that is not in front of you. You have had an applicant who has stated that they don't have a final product, and the PD zoning says that you have the site plan, the preliminary plan, or a site plan, and what you like as the law director said, what you see is what you get, and you haven't seen it, so you're granting something that you haven't seen in essence.
Blank check.
I think it could be, if that's the way they did conceptualize it, I think that's useful.
So I think I just want to make sure I have everything correctly in my head. The previous meetings where we have voted was to continue the conversation. We didn't actually do any final approvals. It was merely an opportunity to interact, get community involvement, hear the city, hear the developer side, and us as commissioners was an opportunity to continue the dialogue and see where it would go.
Mm-hmm.
And we are at a time out right now, really, that in order to what we are discussing now is at this stage, it doesn't, if it does or does not make sense to decouple the zoning with the PUD with having a plan in hand and knowing what product. If we voted yes, that would basically be decoupling it, because you're saying that normally in the PUD process you have, you know what the plan is, and that's your zoning that you're approving is going,
Mm-hmm.
and we're at that stage that if we would approve it, we'd actually be decoupling those things.
If approving it, for you history buffs out there, you are crossing the Rubicon. Reference to the Roman Empire, but that's essentially becomes, I don't want to say the point of no return, but it puts this project into a higher degree of certainty that it happens, and we're not there yet as a city. And I don't think this commission is, in just reading the tea leaves, I don't think that that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. So then
That's-
how I was maybe clumsily describing it, to me, it's we've voted on talking, making recommendations, getting feedback, but now we're at a point where in order to keep it a standard process, that the city is recommending that we don't approve it, because then that would keep it to the standard process together.
I think that's a good way to think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Director Upton or Mr. O'Malley, is there any reason that the applicant couldn't come back with another plan and restart this process, or Is there anything prohibiting that?
Preliminary plans like have been, and I want to be clear, this body did recommend the preliminary plan. So it's not final, but it was recommended to council, and it, as was pointed out, yes, preliminary plans can be amended. So they're related. They go hand in hand, the PD and the rezoning, but they each have their own separate standing, with the zoning classification be a broader analysis.
And Director Upton, has the Landmarks Commission signed off on a plan?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. So I would like to make a motion to recommend approval to City Council, the referral from City Council of Ordinance number 2025-100, the rezoning of parcel 236-10-15. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now it's open to commission's deliberation.
Mr. Chair, can I offer, as I often do, a condition to the motion that you made?
Yes.
And a lot of times it goes without saying, but
I think we need to say this.
It's better not left unsaid.
Correct.
Conditioned upon the preliminary plan being finalized and approved by the city council.
Correct. So recommend approval on the condition that the preliminary plan be finalized and approved by city council. Yes, I agree. Comments?
I have a question. So, just so I'm absolutely 3,000% clear here. So the motion is to approve, but city staff motion.
Mr.
to not.
Chairman.
Always in the affirmative,
Okay.
Right.
so that you know when you're voting,
That's why I'm
if you
asking.
vote yes, you're recommending. If you vote no, you're not recommending. The motion's always made in the affirmative for that reason. Because if you move to deny it, then people get confused whether an affirmative vote is approving it or denying it. Do you see what I mean?
That's why I'm asking.
Okay. It's standard.
So
Standard.
the city
He stole my thunder, Mr.
staff
Chairman.
is recommending against it, a no vote. So if we voted right now on this proposal, no, we would be supporting the city's
Okay,
position.
thank you.
If we
It's-
voted yes.
Like I said, I
This would be
just
going
want to make
forward.
100.
Great.
Yeah.
So I have a few comments to make. I know, the city master plan here has been mentioned on a number of occasions. I just want to point out that, I participated in the development of this plan. This commission recommended approval to city council of it. You can see by all the dog ears in mine, I pretty much know what's in it. I must say that the city does need new housing options. That is clearly in the plan. And infill development is something that is recommended. We do have suggested areas that we would like to see this, but it doesn't preclude development in other areas. And it does talk about preserving neighborhood identity. Yes, the Biddulph House would be preserved. We talk about it being next to a multi-family apartment complex, but that really, from Butternut Road, you can barely even see it. It exits onto Great Northern Boulevard. So that's largely different. This is going to empty right into it. And it is inside, part of it is inside the historic district. So, my house is more than 50 years old. It's older than some of the houses in the historic district. And I know that if I don't keep on it constantly and keep it fresh, it really starts to look shabby. And I think the same thing goes for neighborhoods too. So we need to keep it fresh. So I'm wondering, is there something that we could build in that parcel that would be additive or enhance the community? I don't know. I do go back to our code. I am enjoying, Mr. O'Malley's description of the law. I like to read the code. And on 1126.05, which is it covers what all of our development plans need to have. It needs to be a harmonious design to the surrounding area. And that's where I really get hung up. And we're being asked to change the zoning code to accommodate something new in the city. That's, I want to thank the applicant and their counsel. I think the applicant has been accommodating. We've asked him to make a couple of changes based on input. He's been accommodating to do that, but I'm wondering, it doesn't mean that and 1157 doesn't say that every planned unit development that comes to us must be approved. We have the discretion to review the plan and make our decision based on that. And so I still go back to the harmonious design in the surrounding area. And I've seen similar planned unit development type places in neighborhoods that are like really nice. I would like that to be next to mine. I know we passed a preliminary plan for this. Let's talk about it. There were a number of objections to it. Thanks for all the input. But I'm wondering, is this the right development in that area? And I don't know, I get hung up on that. It's really the density that is an issue to me. Someone pointed out you could put a lot of single-family homes in that lot too, and that would probably fit in there and no one would have a problem. So I guess based on that, personally, until I'm yes, it has to be no for me. And so I'm gonna probably vote no on this. So that's where I stand. Anyone else care to make a comment?
So maybe I can add a little additional color, since I've worked on many developments across the country, that it usually comes down to the word appropriateness, right? So when we're talking about PUD and where would it fit, and from what I read, and I am no lawyer, however, my reading of that is our job is to consider where it is appropriate, and as we enable development to accomplish the goals, it should always be in the back of our minds of appropriateness. And as we've gone through the series of conversations, that issue has been raised, and I don't think many of us have ever been fully comfortable. It's been more of a lot of caveats and saying, I'm willing to still talk, and here are our concerns. I think when we're at this point now where there has to be a vote taken, it doesn't preclude anything in the future. However, I think it's really at this juncture, we have to take a firm side on that. And I'm with you because I'm not convinced of the appropriateness at this time. That I would have to vote no, because my concern would be then it decouples, and then how do you make sure that everybody is rowing in the same direction after that?
Thank you.
I think at the first vote, I believe I was the only one that voted no. I understand the need for more housing. I understand the need for developing the lots that we have, and that bit of house, it absolutely needs to be completely redone. Such a beautiful house that unfortunately, is in such decay. I think that it can be done differently. The lot could be developed differently, in such a way that the neighbors are happy with what's coming in, as opposed to having the whole neighborhood plus adjacent streets voicing their concern and displeasure with what the plan is. At the moment, I would just follow what Director Upton said, also Councilwoman Heeman. who's been against it from the get go. And yeah, I'm also I'll continue with my vote as it goes.
Thank you. Ms. Hamden, do you care to comment, or are we good to move on?
We're good.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Wilson, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. David,
No.
Mr. D'Alessandro,
No.
Mr. Leon,
No.
Ms. Hamden,
No.
I guess that speaks for itself. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out on this evening, and thanks for all your input. I'm probably sure we'll be seeing you again soon. Have a
Mr.
good
Chairman,
holiday.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to wish all the residents and specifically the unpaid resident volunteer members of our planning commission a safe and happy, healthy, merry holiday season. Eat, drink, and be merry. We'll see you on the other side. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. Before we go to adjournment, I'd like to excuse Ms. Kalin and Mr. Minio. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody? Great, thanks, they're excused. Again, thank you all for coming out. I know these have been some tense meetings, and by the way, we're all volunteers up here. We do this because, I've lived in North Olmsted for 30 years, and, hey, I live here too.
You're gonna get a pay cut.
I know, so take it out of my paycheck. Meeting's adjourned at 8:07.
Folks I want here. I was gonna say, I don't.
I was saying, no, now we can go.